This is your host, Laura Winters, the heart-led pathfinder, intuitive energy healer, speech-language pathologist, and owner of Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC. Welcome to Miracle in Time, a mini-series podcast that brings you the stories of beautiful humans exploring the synchronicities, blessings, and miracles within our perception of time. It illustrates that events are not just happening to us, but for us. Life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, but it is a miracle in time. As a disclaimer, this podcast contains general information about various topics and medical conditions and is for educational purposes and inspiration only. Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC is not responsible or liable for the accuracy of information contained in this podcast. The information contained in this episode is the personal views of the host and guests, respectively. This podcast is not meant to replace the advice of your healthcare provider and is not intended to prescribe, prevent, treat, or diagnose disease. You assume all risks when you continue this episode. Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Miracle in Time. I wanted to also thank you for listening to the first mini-series, not so mini, but still a great series on orofacial myofunctional disorders and therapy. I hope that you are able to gain a lot more knowledge and power for you on your journey ahead. And if that means that orofacial myofunctional disorders is part of it, then I do wish you all the luck and improvement in your life going forward. So to continue my story, I'm going to expand more on my OMD journey since the last time you've heard from me. So in March of this year is when I think it was February when we decided to do the tongue tie release, and I talked to some guests who also did the release with me. So you kind of heard a little bit before and after, but in March is when I started to do the exercises to prepare for the frenectomy. So I was doing those every single day, and if I had been a little bit more prepared, I would have started the body work ahead of time. And so the week before the release is when I first met with a craniosacral therapist, and she did some work to release some of those fascial strains that would ultimately help my body's ability to integrate the release, because the tongue goes from doing what it always has done to now having this freedom of movement, and it's so different. So that's why you do the exercises. You try to do the body work to prepare the body to be able to integrate all the information so that you can achieve the best benefit from it. So on April 5th, I drove down myself to Dayton, Ohio, to Dr. Greg Notestein, who was a guest on the episode, on an episode here. And I had never met him before. And on the way down, I had this now wait a second, is this something I really want to do? I really believe that, our bodies are created beautifully the way that they're supposed to. And I had already talked to my mentor about it, and she was very much like, this is going to help you. But still, on the way down, I had this fear of well, wait a second, there's always a risk to any kind of surgical procedure. And how is this going to go? So I said, please, if there is any way you can show me a sign that this is the right thing to do, I would very much appreciate it. And so I got there and met with the other ladies who were there, and all kind of nervous but excited at the same time. And right before we were going to start, Dr. Notestein came out and he said, is that okay if we say a prayer? And it was like immediately all of these feelings just like went away. And it's kind of interesting, growing up as Catholic. I have a different Catholic experience than a lot of other people, but I think, prayer was something for me that was, I don't know, it's just something that I rarely did. Like, we did it in church. You would, you're told to say your prayers, but it was something that was never, I don't know. It wasn't something that was daily for me. And yeah, so there was kind of a lot of things with prayer, and I've been reading a book on prayer that has been really helpful. And anyway, but in that moment, it just felt so right. Normally, if someone said, like, can we pray together? I'd be like, yeah, okay, but it just felt so aligned. And that was my sign that this was totally right for me. And so, yeah, so the experience of being able to witness other people having the release was very, very interesting, very eye-opening, how the kind of like the tongue is so restricted, and then all of a sudden it's just like free and able to move. And for me, thinking about tongue ties and things, I feel like there's this energetic piece that, like, for so long, we have been programmed not to speak our mind, not to speak our truth. And so to me, it seems almost like an energetic piece of this physical manifestation of this programming. Over time, we've just evolved as a human race that we just don't believe that we can speak our mind and speak our truth. And obviously that is beginning to change. And there have always been wonderful people who have just been able to do that. But yeah, I really do feel like there is an energetic piece. And so when the tongue is finally released, it's like, oh my gosh, there's just so many things that can happen. So before my release, I had witnessed one of the other ladies being released, or actually two of them. And while Dr. Notestein, I'm pretty sure I told the story in his episode, but during him doing someone's blood pressure, I had wanted to ask a question. I said, "Can I ask a question?" And he stopped me. "No, I don't want to hear it right now." And I was just kind of like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And so when he was completed with a blood pressure, he said, "Okay, go ahead. You can ask your question." And so I didn't really understand it in the moment. And then when it was my turn to go, I sat down, he put the blood pressure cuff on, and then he held my hand while doing the blood pressure. And I was kind of in awe at the healing touch that he had. Like, I could totally feel it. It was unlike anything I think I've ever experienced before. Having this very, conventional medicine doctor, dentist, knowing that he is obviously spiritual with using the prayer at the beginning, but just to be able to feel it, I was very much like, wow, I'm in amazing hands right now. And it was very wild to me. So going through the release myself, you get numbed up, so you don't really feel too much. And witnessing the other people before and seeing them looking around and looking at everyone's eyes as you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I just kept my eyes closed the whole time because I'm like, I don't need any outside forces making me feel certain ways. So afterward, it was very interesting, just the ability of, even though you couldn't really feel it because you were numbed, but being able to move your tongue around and it being able to rest on the roof of your mouth. Because I do have a little bit narrow and high palate, but not too shabby. So I was able to get the tongue on the roof of the mouth where it's supposed to be, which I had never been there before. It's like, oh my gosh, this is actually possible. So I was the last person to go. So afterward, it was very much like, okay, everybody all right? Like, let's go through kind of some aftercare and then time to go home. So on the way home, I also had my buckle ties done on the top, which he had said, you don't really need to have them done. But I'm like, I'm here, just do them. And so there was numbing anesthetic up top as well. So on the way home, I kind of started freaking out because when I protruded my lips, there was one side that didn't do anything. And fear set in like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that like went wrong, Like I'm supposed to be doing this, it's supposed to make me better. And then I did something stupid I shouldn't have. And now I have this problem. I'm never going to have the perfect smile again. And I'm never going to be able to stick my lips out. It was just so crazy, the spiral that happens. And, knowing that there was still anesthetic in there, but I could feel it. Like I could feel. So the sensory portion was there, but the motor portion was not. And so I'm kind of like freaking out. But in that moment, I very much like try to center myself, thinking about just positive things and also providing like healing energy to that area. And it was kind of wild because, as all these things are playing out in your head, it was literally like the minute after I was like, okay, healing energy here, it's moving. I can see it moving. I can see it moving, though I can't see it moving. I can see it moving. I'm visualizing it. And then within like a minute, it was like, boom, it was doing it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Nothing. It's just kind of like another example how like nothing is concrete, like when we feel like something happens, we're like, oh, this is the end result. But as long as we kind of keep the doors open, that we're not solidified in something that we believe, then there's opportunity for flow and movement and change. So it was really important for me to have that like freak out. Oh my gosh, this is going to be forever, but I have some ability to change a situation. Now, is it possible that, a minute later, if I did nothing, that would have happened? Absolutely. But it's also possible that those things helped move everything along quicker. So I got home. My mom was there watching the kids and she left. And then it was probably an hour later and my daughter started throwing up everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, this cannot be happening, right? Like I just had a surgical procedure. I have to like be very mindful of what I'm putting in my mouth, like how things are healing. And she's there throwing up. So again, this like fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start throwing up in a couple of days. It's going to ruin everything. And you stop yourself and go, wait a second, this is not the story that I want to be putting out there. It will be fine. Everything will be fine. I will not throw up until I'm in a better spot to be able to handle it. And so every couple days it worked through the members of the family. And then finally it was my turn and it was not pretty. And I remember eventually, you get dry heaving so bad. I finally had to say out loud, please stop. There is nothing left in me. There is absolutely nothing left in me. And I just felt like this, like my body just totally relaxed. And that was it. I was done. I literally had nothing left in me. And finally, the energy of the heaving, whatever it needed out of me was gone. So that was good. So during the healing process, I would say my pain level got to a 5 out of 10 at the most. And that was when I was doing particular exercises, including the ping pong tongues. That hurt a lot. And then right after the anesthesia wore off. Otherwise, everything was about a 2 out of 10. Now, I did utilize some pain management strategies. So I did arnica, which is a homeopathic remedy, arnica montana. At night, I did use I think it's called a multi-cannabinoid, something like that, CBD oil. And then that kind of helped me sleep. In the morning was a little rougher because your tongue is just kind of hanging out in the middle of the night, and then you start moving it throughout the day. But otherwise, not too shabby. So after your frenectomy, you're doing, you have like I believe it's a 2 day break where you're not doing anything. And then you start volitional exercises. So actually moving the tongue where you want to. And then, so you're doing that every day. And then after a period of time, then you start some neuromuscular exercises as well. And you also do some kind of like manual manipulation to the area, some light stretches, not like putting your fingers in the wound or anything like that. It's always off to the side. And then as things heal, then you might provide just a really light touch stimulation to the area where the scarring is happening. But I found it really interesting. For me, I was really hesitant to get in there, which, I feel like I'm normally not, but I was. And with the sickness, the throwing up, and the hesitancy to get in there, I feel like I do have still a little like scar tissue and restriction. And, that's okay. That was part of my journey. And, so I think that information is important for when my kids go through this, because they'll need to be released, that it's okay to get right in there on the timeline that you're supposed to, in order to keep that scar tissue from kind of like getting too tight. So that's kind of the journey of my frenectomy. And I'm really thankful and satisfied. The benefits that I have seen are definitely some better sleep. So I have always been go on one side, roll on the other side, back and forth all night long. And now I feel like if I wake up once in the middle of the night, like that's kind of my new normal. And so I'm sleeping throughout the night. I have deeper sleep. I'm having less right neck and shoulder pain. I have this new sense of power and like almost like comfort and ease in my body. I was having so much tension and heat in my face. That's all gone. I've been really, really satisfied. After the release, I think it was 2 weeks later, so I was getting craniosacral fascial therapy, CFT, the same thing that I do. That's my favorite thing to do, about once a week. And that really helped to release some of the tension patterns. And throughout that time, you're still doing the exercises. So the other thing that I had mentioned, I think it was on Dr. Jake's podcast, was the fascial maneuvers with Human Garage. Those are extremely helpful as well. So if we're talking about releasing your own fascia, you may not have access to a craniosacral therapist or a CFT practitioner, then that might be the way to go. They have a lot of YouTube videos, and they also have an app that you can purchase kind of their challenges, which I did. And that was really helpful for me to stay on track. So that is like a new sense of release of pain, flow, and movement in your body. So super helpful. And I think this journey has taught me a lot about coming back into the body. So, I remember early on in this journey, kind of the spiritual aspects of it, I was very much up in the clouds, which I kind of always am, for the most part. I'm kind of always up in the clouds. And so this journey has taught me a lot about coming back into the body. We are a soul, a spirit in human form. And so, it's important that we are utilizing this human experience to the full extent, and that we can provide the love and the care that we need through ourselves to others, and really taking care of our body and using it to its full potential. So while all this is happening, I am planning for the Make the Connection course, and it was a really good learning experience. I do feel like at some point I'm going to be doing some kind of training for something. I don't know what, or some kind of group thing, but it was a really good experience to be able to try to figure out where an event might be happening, what things to consider, the timelines of things, the things that you're going to need. So that was a really good experience, and coordinating with people and communication, lots and lots of things. So I think it was maybe a week and a half ago, we did have the Make the Connection course here in Toledo. There were 12 participants, and me and Lynn, who was on an episode, were there. It was really good, and I feel like I was able to integrate the information a lot more the second time. So it's a lot of information, but I felt like I knew I retained a lot of the information from before and learned a lot. And I also felt this ease that it's okay that I personally am not providing myofunctional therapy. I go back and forth quite a bit because I go, man, it's not quote unquote hard per se. Like, why am I avoiding something like this? But it really is not why I'm here. It's really not the avenue that I want to be helping people, because I have so many other things that I'm able to do and help with. So I think the information has been really, really beneficial for myself. And though I need to really be doing more with my children, there's a lot of things going on. And so I can make a million excuses, but I'm just kind of trusting the timing in that. And I think that it all has been extremely beneficial. So the question is, where does the journey go from here? So wrapping up this portion of the orofacial myofunctional disorders and therapy, and I had very much had a plan of where we were going to go next. And what I learned from my first podcast was that when you're doing all of the work and you're trying too hard, it's probably not the way that you should be going. And so after I did that podcast for, I think it was a year and a half or so, pulling teeth, trying to get people to do the podcast with. And then I was not as tech savvy with the editing software. Gosh, it took so much time to do. Anyway, so I realized after a period of time that you can't just keep pulling teeth in order to make something work. So the same has gone for the next theme that I had planned. Things are not working out with people. It seems too hard. And so it's time to move on and bring the next thing up. So on the next episode, you are going to get an introduction to thriving dry eye and more detail about that part of my story. I hope that you really enjoyed listening to the Orofacial Myofunctional Disorders and Therapy mini-series, and I hope that you come back for more. Thanks for listening, and I very much hope that you enjoyed this Miracle in Time. Thank you for listening to Miracle in Time. If you would like to explore a theme or know someone perfect for this podcast, please fill out a form on yourlightllc.com/podcast. If you would like to learn more about my services, you can visit the website at yourlightllc.com. I want you to remember that with all life's ups and downs, you are divinely held and guided throughout your journey. Don't miss out on this miracle in time.